Hi, and welcome to the SME Data Podcast with Data Cubes. I'm Helen Ward, your host, and I'm here with Deepa today. Deepa, would you like to take a moment just to introduce yourself and tell us about what you do?
Sure. I'm Deepa. I'm managing director for a business called Cloud8. Cloud8 is a SaaS business which provides software via a distribution channel who are employee benefit advisors who then go on and sell the product onto SME businesses in the UK.
hmm Great, okay. And how long have you been there?
It's been 1 year and 2 months that I've been there, but I've worked in the employee benefits industry, so our client sector, for nearly 20 years now.
Okay, so how important is data to you in your role?
Um, well, I suppose from my perspective, I come across less data today. But when I've worked on my client side of the fence, so near enough most of my career, when you're working with employers and delivering employee benefit packages, often you'll find that both large and small companies have the same challenges, but the smaller companies, so what SME businesses we support today, their
Mm.
resources are variably different, much, much smaller. So I remember, whenever you're looking at employee benefits, often employers are spending 3, 5, 10% of payroll on employee benefits. And often that data is not really looked at. So HR are sitting there saying, right, what am I going to offer my employees? And I think pensions and, insurance benefits, the best thing since sliced bread. But actually, when you look at the data, and as a consultant advising these firms in a previous life, you find that there's a disconnect because you look at the employee take up levels. So, what are they actually selecting and engaging? And when you look at what sort of touch points they're looking at on the platform, so what are they clicking on? What are they viewing? What are they downloading? Often
Mm.
they're more interested in things like, and I'm saying this flippantly, this varies between employer and demographic, but they might be looking at retail discounts or buying more holiday or childcare vouchers and things like that. So, when you present that information back, that data back to the employer to say, look, you're spending all this money and this is where you want to focus, but actually your employees are interested in this. It makes you think about the kinds of communication you need to do with your employees. So let's not talk about boring pensions and dying and retiring benefits. Let's
Mm.
talk about it in a way that, if you want the lifestyle you've got today when you get to retirement, how are you going to fund it? If the worst was to happen to you, how would you support, how would the partner, or how would you support your children? What legacy will you leave behind? And if you start changing that messaging, your employer is now spending the benefit spend that they were going to do originally on what they thought was amazing on something that resonates and is relevant with their employee demographic.
hmm
And data insights is key to that, especially where smaller businesses with smaller HR operational teams have lots of decisions to make. So within our sector of employee benefits and technology, there's lots of choice. And,
hmm
so there's things like savings accounts, retail discounts, buying cars through your employer and all sorts of benefits. There's about 20, 25 benefits in the UK or more of this carbon offsetting, tree planting, all this stuff. Or if you buy a volunteering day, your employer will give you one for free, kind of thing. How does the employer know what's the right thing to do for their people? And data is a key part of that. So what's
hmm
working now? Look at your data, but actually then do some surveys, some feedback with your employees to get that data as well, to then make the right decisions and spend the money in the right place.
Okay. And how do you find that adoption process? Because obviously data is, in some ways quite unique and niche still. So how do you sort of get it pushed out across the broader SME landscape?
Just putting it into perspective of the platform that we provide to advisors and then they provide to employers, um,
hmm
data is often overlooked. So we get all excited about the benefits, the comms package, the branding, how we're going to launch this. So there's like an implementation process and a phase, but nobody actually thinks about the data. Where's it coming from? That initial set of data. And actually, when I've been on the consultancy side of the fence working with employers, I would often start the data gathering exercise 3 to 6 months before go live, because no matter what size of business it is, you've got HR that owns some data, payroll which owns some data, then you've got benefit providers, the third party suppliers that the client employer works with, and there's no source of truth, right? But nobody wants to say, I'm really excited about this and I want to put this together. HR are interested in retention, engagement, doing the right thing by the company. Data's not on their forefront. Payroll want to pay people the right salary. They've got the right deductions. That's the data they're focused on. And suppliers are looking at the right benefits from an insurance perspective. So no one in that project will ever say, do you know what, Deepa? Yeah, I want to do the data piece of it. So adoption, it does take a bit of time and energy to explain to an employer why it's really important to collate that information. But I think, again, if you say to them, look, appreciate you're a small business, let's build in some time. Once you've got that one source of truth data, a platform like ours manages that on an ongoing basis. So yes, it's a real headache to bring it together, but actually once it's into the platform's got the right information in the right way. Therefore, when an employee logs on, am I seeing the right salary, the right dependents, the right benefits I've selected? If I'm not, as an employee, I disengage with the platform. And so these are some of the things that we try and explain to clients during the implementation phase to say, get it right. Otherwise, all that time and energy has gone to waste. And then the other side of that is the maintenance aspect. But in terms of adoption, understanding, I still think people don't understand, within our sector certainly, and employee benefits and HR, the value of having good data in one place.
Okay. And would you say that's kind of the main challenge, or are there others?
I think the other part of the challenge is that, so let's say we've got this one source of truth, we've reached that nirvana, brilliant, we've launched it, employees are engaging, the employer is excited, running reports and doing all their stuff off this one source of truth platform that platforms like Cloud8 have provided. I think there's another bit that's often overlooked and not really understood, is that business as usual state. So, if you think about, most companies will have a HR system, something in the middle like ours, if they've adopted it, or several spreadsheets or processes that does that middle bit. And then you'll have a payroll system at the other end. But no one's really mapped out what is the data journey between those points. I think larger employers are doing it, but the SME space is starting to wake up to it now. So with any new system, even things like holiday booking systems or sick leave, holiday leave and absence booking systems or online payslip systems, they're brilliant ideas. But if you don't think about the flow of data, so where's the master data coming from? Then when it offshoots onto all these third-party systems, because, let's be real here, no one system can do all of those things. So every single company in the UK will have several systems doing several things, and they'll all have integration and single sign-on throughout, which the employee, employer, or various operational people interact with. But when you buy a new system, are you thinking about the touch points and master data's in, but who's editing that data? Is it the employee, which I think is the way to go, where we have more self-serve, because the employee is more likely to manage data of their own. If they log on to see something which isn't right, they're going to correct it. So they should own that bit. Then payroll owns their bit. But how is that all flowing and interacting through the systems? So if I go in as an employee and I've had a baby, I've put in my baby's details, how is that then feeding back to the HR system, out to the suppliers that my employer works with, and then out to payroll for whatever they might need to do if I've selected dependence benefits, for example. So I think there's a bit of, HR people will say they're not systems people. IT people will say, well, data's not my problem. I'm just there for infrastructure, maintenance stuff. And payroll's just going to be saying, well, I just deal with the deduction part of it. And I'll be honest, look, I'm not, though I take care of a software business, I'm not a techie person, but this is common sense stuff. So you know all the fields of data that you manage for your people. Yeah. All
Hmm.
you're doing as a HR person or a project owner, you're not technical, but you're saying this data belongs here. This data is going to be managed by this person. And you just have to flow and write that all out in
Hmm.
layman's terms, what's sustainable for your business, and then engage the techie people within that conversation. But it's that initial mapping thought process that often doesn't take place.
Yeah. And you said that now is a good time. So now seems to be that more people are waking up to it in the SME space. Why is now relevant?
Um, I think there's a couple of things. With Cloud 8, we provide a software solution to SME businesses. Why is that? The cost of software has come down dramatically for SME businesses. So all of a sudden there's lots more choice for SMEs, whereas, before, these HR, payroll, all these systems, even financial systems like the QuickBooks of the world, Zoho, CRM systems, and so forth, they've never been in the reach, in the realms of these SME businesses, but they have so in the last 5 years. So all of a sudden, SMEs have got more choice. They're like, great, I can have technology now. But the other bit as well is, most employees, and I think there's a statistic out there from the CIPD a couple of years ago, where average length of service is 2.5 years. So
Mm.
employees are moving around, and the category of employees we've got varies as well. So we've had the traditional permanent employee, now we've got contractors, zero contract employees, fixed term contractors, temp to perm. And so there's all these different data sets that the SME is now having to manage. That How do you do that? Well, you have to do
Mm.
it either through an Excel spreadsheet, which is probably not the best way,
No.
or you buy a software because the cost has come down, and get that to manage most of your data points. But then you'll
Hmm.
find that you've got another system somewhere else, and how you're going to stick them all together. So I
Yeah.
think choice, and the choice factor, and the changing, just the way that the world works now. We all work in very different ways, and
Mm.
sometimes, you'll get an employee that works for several employers. So the employees having to self-manage data across several employers that they're working with.
Hmm. And what would you say are the biggest kind of lessons that you've learned in your experience so far to help
Hmm.
others that may be sort of earlier on the journey that are thinking that, okay, we want to start doing more with our data? What would be your sort of kind of insight around your biggest lessons that they could learn from?
Um, I think, first and foremost, why are we doing it? I'm a big fan of scoping documents. So even my level, but also at consultant level, when I used to, there are a lot of ideas, and a lot of good ideas, and a lot of good systems out there. But actually, just taking that time out to say, why am I doing this? What's the benefit for my business? But what's the benefit for my people? Just a one pager, just documenting why you're doing that. And
Hmm.
then I suppose the second stage of that is then, what have I already got in place, and is it fit for purpose? Uh, a lot of the time, businesses have stopped writing business cases, validating why they're doing what they're doing, and often are jumping to, let's just do it.
Yeah.
And that validation point of, well, what have I got that works really well, will often then say, well, what's not working so well, which then will drop out. All that software choice that you've got, and all these things that manage data, it then starts funneling down what's right for your small business, what's
Hmm.
going to give you the outcomes that you want. So for example, if a client wants a really powerful reporting dashboard, but wants a finance system to do something, a HR system to do something else, actually, could they be better off just working in a Power BI tool, which brings all that information together, and get a Power BI expert to come up with a dashboard, but leave all the key platforms in their place? Now, if dashboard reporting isn't important to them, then let those things do what they're doing. You don't need that view. Whereas if you've got a management team who want MI on a regular basis, that dashboard becomes important.
Yeah.
It's just, or is it reporting that I need to make sure that payroll reporting is done the right way, or my employees see the right data, then the dashboard thing becomes irrelevant. Um,
Hmm.
so I think it's just making sure, understanding the needs of the business today, but then there's a future proofing element of it as well. So the other part of the business case, is often thinking about phases. So today, this will be right for me, year 2, year 3. So you don't end up with stagnated, clunky systems. They grow with your business.
Hmm.
Um, and also thinking about the cost benefit analysis, um, actually, how much people time is it going to save by
Yeah.
having good insight, good information, which is self managed or managed through the data flows that I talked about.
Hmm.
Just write it all down, that one pager, why are we doing it, that validation point, and all of a sudden you've got this really brilliant 5 pager of this is what we're doing, why we're doing it, because then that helps with the supplier management phase as well. So when you're talking to these millions of technologies out there, actually
Mm.
there might be just a short list of 2 or 3 that are right as you start
Hmm.
talking to them, because you and your internal stakeholders are singing from the same hymn sheet because you've worked on that business case together. There's some real value in doing that. And I think often, well, in the last couple of years, I've seen people just skip that phase, and I'm not sure what's driving that. Maybe because
Yeah.
they're time poor,
But it's a good point, because if you don't know where you want to get to, you're not going to get there.
Exactly.
That's that part of it, isn't there? And I think, it's a good point to raise, because I think just getting started could even help understand your gaps, so you know what you need to fill for the future. What do we need to collect now? What do we need to improve now that is going to help us understand our success in the future, rather than just sort of putting it off and thinking, oh, it's for later, rather than for now. It's definitely a for now thing, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's that. I think people see that business case, right? I mean, it can take up to 3 months because sometimes you might need to engage other stakeholders as
Hmm.
well, but actually, where the end state you get to, all your stakeholders have bought into it, but hand on heart, you can say, I've done the right thing for my business. Um,
Hmm.
Sometimes, I'm talking, about quite big projects we've worked on in the past where we're implementing like the Workdays and the Sages of the world, and then integrating our kind of platforms into there. Projects take a good couple of years, and that stakeholder engagement piece can take up to 1 year for big organizations, not SMEs. SMEs work at a much more agile, faster pace. We all know that from lots of stats out there in the world. Um,
Yeah.
but often a year on, because that stakeholder engagement, the business case hasn't been right, the project gets pulled because not everyone's understood the rationale behind doing it.
Yeah, I agree. It's something we see as well. And I think it's that really important part of thinking about where you want to go without overdoing that point too much, but knowing what you want to get out of it, and then thinking about how the data is going to get you there. So on that
Exactly.
note then, what sort of opportunities do you see? What kind of would be the biggest opportunities you see for SMEs with data?
Um, I think it's just making the right decisions for your business. I think it's a really, really exciting time to be an SME right now. If you talk to many economists in the UK today, in the last 18 months, it's been a pretty tough time for big businesses, but actually SMEs have driven the most change and have actually been quite profitable in lockdown. I'm not
Hmm.
talking about hospitality sector here. I'm talking about businesses like ourselves, because we've reacted and responded to change quickly. So that's great. It's a great time for us, which creates opportunities, because actually a lot of people who come from big organizations want to work for smaller organizations.
Mm.
The opportunities there because they want to come and work for SMEs. But then how do you retain that talent, and how do you keep that productivity level high? You can only do that with good data. So who are my people? What's going on? Where are my pain points as a business? And I put it into context. So when I joined this business a year ago, um, we'd signed up 10 odd clients, and they've got end clients as well. So each 10 client has about 100 to 200 corporate clients, which could potentially use our platform, SME businesses. But
Mm.
what we didn't understand was the pain points, because things were going into various people's inboxes, by introducing a help desk online, so through a business called Freshdesk, Zendesk, all of those similar kind of setup. What we actually learned as an SME was we started to see tickets being dropped, but trends across our client. So we as a tech business have a roadmap and we've got some ideas of where we want to go. But actually, by having that data set there, the opportunity it created for us was it made us realize the pain points for our client. Therefore, we pivoted and changed our roadmap because the potential book of business that can come onto our platform is far greater if we address those pain points. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
that's an example of the opportunity good data creates for SMEs. I think it's
Mm-hmm.
knowing your customers, because in today's world, it's actually not about the big brand logos. A lot of clients across the board are thinking about spending their money on suppliers, technology who are aligned to their thinking, their mindset. And it's a bit like, good customer services. They are really focused on that. And for SMEs, having that insights for their client, will create more opportunities. So we as a business, our clients love us because we're agile, we're fast paced, but how do we keep up with that opportunity? Well, it's understanding our clients through the data sets that we get through the help desk and so forth. And I think
Mm-hmm.
it's the same with client retention, employee retention, having a good understanding of what those trends are and keeping up with them. It's not,
Mm-hmm.
we've got the help desk, we've put it in. It's not like I'm not going to look at that. I look at it on a weekly basis.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And then what sort of tools do you use across the business to help you view the data to get it visualized in a meaningful way?
So I think earlier on I mentioned Power BI to you. So
Mm-hmm.
we're at a point now, we are true startup now, scale up phase. So
Mm-hmm.
we put a couple of good platforms in place like the QuickBooks, the Freshdesk. We've got our own platform, which is where we see the employee engagement insights. So who's clicking what are the take-up reports and so forth. And we've got a finance system as well. So I guess for us, the next phase of that is bringing all that MI together into one dashboard. We've also got Zoho for our CRM, and there's lots of other
Mm-hmm.
CRMs out there. So how many calls does it take for a marketing qualified lead before it becomes a sale, before it becomes a client, and how long does it take for a client to onboard? The bit that's missing at the moment is we're manually stitching that data together from different sources. And that's fine to do, for a small business like ours. But as we grow and our clients grow and utilize the platform, we need to have that dashboard view. So if a client's bought this much volume, how much are they using? When are they using it? And what are their pain points? If I could have that snapshot, I mean, we've kickstarted a project on that front. But like any small business, the day job takes priority over that. But I'd
Mm-hmm.
love for that to be up and running by this time next year, because it then tells you where you need to focus on as a business. Because if any business is similar to ours, you've got a sales function, you've got a client function, and then you've got a operational function. But with us, we've also got the tech team, which is the core part of our business. So how do you have that holistic view?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You can only
Yeah.
achieve that through a powerful dashboard, rather than looking at things separately and then management cascading the information. All our
Yeah.
employees should be able to see that.
Mm-hmm. And what would drive the urgency in your business for that? Obviously, you said about you'd love to have it sort of in place as a project by next year. Why not today? What makes you think about next year rather than now?
Well, so we've done the scoping part of it, and I wish we could have it yesterday. It comes down to time. So,
Mm-hmm.
we're going through a few things with our tech development at the moment. We're recruiting as well. Hopefully, recruitment will end come January, and then we'll be able to get somebody to just focus on that. The framework's there. It's just
Yeah.
having the person. So we've been
And what?
recruiting. So we've recruited lots of people, but we're also acquiring clients, which
Yeah,
is, I guess, a nice problem to have.
definitely. So an exciting time for the business, but kind of what's your vision of being data driven? How does that look like when you achieve the end goal?
From a client, from an internal looking perspective or external, do you think?
I think both are really important because to how the business would work being data driven, but then the impact and the value that would deliver for your clients and beyond.
Yes, so I always come at it from a client perspective. So I joined this business as client delivery director before being promoted last month. And having
Mm-hmm.
been on my client's side of the fence for nearly 20 years, I
Mm.
think, we know how big our clients are. We, having, so say, for example, product development, we've got product manager and we've got a good client delivery team, but we're, looking at trends from our help desk. We need to be, when we're looking at sort of scoping out how the product develops, having that information at your fingertips to say, well, actually, this client has the potential growth target of this. These are all their enhancement tickets, and this is what the product needs to focus on. So it's just having that. Whereas at the moment, it's taking three different sections of information. And by the time you've got those three bits together, there's been new information that's coming from the client. So I think it's just keeping on top of that. I know we're ahead of the curve compared to our competitors when it comes to pricing, functionality, and so forth. But it's staying on top of that, because
Mm-hmm.
you're only as good as your last gig. And
Mm-hmm.
when we're developing our product and our services, those really need to be really, really tightly working together. So that would be great. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I guess the other part of it is, having been a purchaser of a platform like ours for many years, utilization is everything for me. So there's no point buying a product if you're not going to use it. Having our clients using it more and more, but then our tech team actually saying, well, this client's using it, this one's not. What's causing that difference, and understanding that. So we've got product, client, and tech all using that MI across all our clients. Whereas at the moment, it feels like it's a very much senior leadership team. So the CTO, myself, finance, our CEO, cascading that information down to the
Mm.
various different departments. And we're only a small business, and we have
Mm-hmm.
get-togethers on a regular basis, but I don't think the client insight and the data points we've got is in the hearts and minds of every single person in our business. And it needs to
Mm-hmm.
be, if we're going to create a client centric product in the long run.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, what's it, an exciting place to get to, wouldn't it?
Yes.
And what
Yeah.
kind
I'm
of
sure everybody wants that.
and what does excite you? You may have already covered this, but what does excite you most about the future, about data and AI and the possibilities for business growth and efficiency and all the good things?
Yeah, I think, sort of just taking a step out from the world of Cloud 8 for a minute, and
Mm,
clients, but it might have elements of it. Um, I think it's, there's a lot of research in the world today. We know that there's research paper on everything.
mm,
And every single day, every single individual in this world has to make a decision on something. Now, that could be, emotional gut instinct, which is what most decisions are driven by, or by
mhm,
data. And I think, the simplicity of connecting data and decision making, I think will help in the long run. I think, just to put that into context, is the better
mm,
decision making around things I do in my personal life, things I do from an educational perspective when you're at school, things from a well-being and a financial perspective. If you can bring good data together based on individual needs in a really simplistic way, I'm going to make efficient decisions so quickly, and the right decisions for me. What does that actually mean in the long run? I think, it means that you're freeing the individual's mind up to focus on other things. Um,
mhm,
I think we've got a big socioeconomic challenge ahead, in the UK, where there's this disparity. Now, if you bring good data, good research together, simplify the decisions we all need to make on a day-to-day basis, you're going to free the individual's mind, right, to go and do
mm,
more creative things, or focus on the things they're unable to focus on today. And if we could do that, you could see a change, and it'll take many years to do this. But all of a sudden, people who didn't have the time to embark on creative things, or read a book, or take up a course, they've got that time to do that, because
yeah,
information on a day-to-day basis is presented in a really nice, digestible way. I mean, I'm
yeah,
talking Nirvana, the
But I think,
ideal
yeah,
step.
I think it starts there, doesn't it, with being able to help people, enable them to do their jobs better by
Yeah,
getting them the right
absolutely.
information at the right time. That's where it starts, isn't it? By empowering them to make those decisions so that they're not reliant on, the wider business to sort of, have that input, but be able to take that in themselves, in their role, and be able to do a better job and to feel more empowered by that. That's got to be a great place to start. And sounds like you're
Absolutely.
well on your way.
Yeah, I mean, like, so let's say, for example, marketing, they're
Hmm.
looking at bits of data, marketing qualified leads, and then you've got sales looking at sales qualified leads, and then you've got finance looking at invoices. And then
Hmm.
they're trying to stitch all this information together. Actually, if you presented that all in a nice, simple way and said, well, these are your options, spend the money here or spend it there or change your pricing model or whatever those options are, because all the analysis has been done and research has been put together, there'll be this real strategic working partnership between sales, marketing, and finance, because we've taken them away from the doing part of the role,
Yeah.
and it sort of elevates. Can you imagine, the doing's done, and then every SME would be elevated to that next level up, because people are thinking more strategically and longer term within the business, rather
Hmm.
than crunching numbers and trying to figure out what's the next best thing. So you might have an idea in marketing, but actually what's the validation point or the research being pulled together to validate the decision you're trying to make. That's from a
Yeah.
business perspective, but on a personal perspective, I definitely think if we could help people make better lifestyle choices, from their
Mm.
health, well-being, financial, you know, I don't know, if you're off sick and you decide to take a certain type of medication, what's the impact of that? There's
Mm.
lots of research papers out there, but if it was presented in a simplified app, I'm now going to better my health, therefore my lifestyle, by making the right decisions. And then that's from a macro perspective, or people who are from a, so I've worked with young enterprise, where you go into schools and you teach them about, young kids from the age of 5. If you had £1, would you spend it on a bag of sweets or put it in a bank account? That kind of,
Mhm.
or big community, big society mentality.
Mm.
But if a young child had that on an app to say, well, this is what I'm going to do, and my pocket money is going to be spent in this way, you start creating a trend where you start taking people out of certain socioeconomic backgrounds and working their way
Mhm.
up, because
Mhm.
the data is presented in a digestible way to them.
Yeah. And I think that the diversity of the examples that you've shared just kind of highlights how much power there is to be had around kind of the use leveraging the power of data. I
Yeah.
think that kind of just, it just shows there are so many things to explore, so many opportunities, but for sure, bringing it back to kind of what matters now. I wish you luck on your journey and the data journey that you have ahead. And I look forward to hearing about how it's all going very soon.
Yeah, hopefully I've got my Nirvana dashboard by this time next year, and then we'll be
I
talking about
look.
the next thing we need to do. But and I think, look, I'm, I don't confess to be, but everyone knows I say I'm not a numbers person. If you can simplify it, it makes decision making a lot easier, because you're not wasting hours trying to compute the data. It's
Yeah.
computed for you, and you're just making the decisions based on that insight. Will help everybody, especially SMEs. They just don't have the people power to be doing that.
Absolutely. I think that's important to share deeper because there are plenty more people that will be in that situation where they just need access to the information to help them make those better decisions. So thank you so much for sharing your insights and your experience. We've loved to hearing from you. And thank you very much for your time.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Deepa. See you soon.
Bye.